Gives me great pleasure to welcome three incredible guys in our industry, as you'll be hearing very shortly. But this is the price of perfection, meeting sky-high guest expectations with technology. Before we get into that, I'd like to ask the panelists to please introduce themselves, starting with Rohan and moving down the row. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm Rohan Jani with Hyatt Hotels, and my team and I are responsible for driving the guest-facing technology and hotel technology function. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rodney Linville. I'm with Nobu Hospitality. I'm the global head of IT.
Morning all, Mark Fancourt. I'm the fractional CIO for Appellation through my own company, Travitech, which is a technology consultancy for industry.
Thank you, gentlemen. So the description of this panel is luxury hospitality is at a crossroads. As guest expectations rise alongside room rates, the question remains, is technology keeping up with the evolving definition of luxury? This panel will explore how technology leaders are shaping the future of luxury space by driving revenue, enhancing guest experiences, and redefining operational strategies. So I'm going to kick off with our first question, technology as revenue. How are luxury brands leveraging technology to drive revenue growth while maintaining their identity? And can technology contribute to the wow factor guests expect at higher price points? I'm going to keep quiet and leave it to the experts. Please, gentlemen, whoever wants to take that, get going. I think Rodney's raring to go, so...
Oh, you're going to throw it at me?
Yeah.
Well, you did two questions.
Okay, well, we do one at a time, sorry. Okay, so how are luxury brands leveraging technology to drive revenue growth while maintaining their identity?
You know, you can go anywhere with this, this growth pattern when it comes to revenue, right? There's so many different ways to try to drive the guest when they're booking their room. You have now AI tools that are pushing you to upsell the room from it being a standard, you know, I just need a standard room, king, double, bed, whatever. And then it comes back to you and says, hey, look, we'll upgrade you to a suite for another $100 or whatever. And at that point, that's driving that revenue of that already high-end room price structure.
Yeah, I think one of the things I tend to focus on is commercial platforms today. The combination of CRM, which, you know, is still a little bit of an unknown in our industry in many ways, but where things are going now with sort of genuine personalization and the capability that sits behind that, focusing back on your overall product and service set for you know, the hospitality business. So, you know, rooms, of course, is a little bit more limited scope, but we all have resorts in our portfolios, and they have a lot of things to sell. So, you know, the key role of technology, one of the things I say is total sales, you know, total revenue, total distribution, and how we push the product back into the front of the customer digitally, and of course behind the scenes from an operational perspective as well. So that for me is where the future must go for the industry.
I couldn't agree more. I think I kind of look at this question of revenue generation in luxury, and I break them into three segments, like pre-arrival, in-stay, and post-stay. And I think the guests that are luxury customers, they are high-spending guests, and they're limited. So how do you target them, their social digital life, and bring them into your funnel and keep them in the funnel? I think it's very critical for luxury brands. And that's really where what we heard about CRM, using proper CRM channels, our .com websites, our digital apps, to lure them into our loyalty ecosystem in a meaningful way. And then while they're in-stay, leveraging the technology to provide meaningful guest experiences, which keeps that stickiness. And then when they leave, staying engaged post-stay are part of the dots that need to be connected in order to drive revenue into the luxury segment. So,
thank you. And we will have time for questions at the end. So please, if you have any, we'll get to that. So gentlemen, second question under this is, can technology contribute to the wow factor guests expect at higher price points?
Absolutely, I think so. I think technology is a huge enabler, to drive those wow factors. And to me, a wow factor is when you really hyper-personalize somebody's stay at a property. Like if you look at luxury, luxury is very personal to each one of us, right? We have different dietary habits, different wellness habits. We have different experiences we like to do. Some like to play golf, some like to go to spa, and these are all the choices we make. So I think the future of luxury hospitality is going to leverage that, intelligence, the data and personalization engine to make those meaningful experiences for the customers, is what I think.
I mean, 100% with you on that, Rohan. If you look at it, as you said, the CRM, I mean, you can bring that into the equation here too, because that is also driving that wow factor is the more that you present to that customer, the customer is going to want to have that appeal that they keep seeing or digitally see something that is going to pique their interest into something different. At the same time, you got to think that is when a guest is coming and staying in one of the luxury hotels, they're expecting a higher end product and a much better service environment, right? They're not coming there just because it's a name. Some people do, okay? They just go with the name, but some actually, the ones that are dedicated to go to those luxury hotels, they know the service, they know the expectation, and they know that they're going to get the same quality at a better price that they would expect in a lower brand.
Yeah, I think, clearly I agree. To add to that, I think there's two views, and particularly for this particular audience. One is obviously the customer view and the wow on that side. Well, going back to what I said earlier, I think one of the things that's held our industry back is the inability to get all our products onto the digital shelf, right? We talk about ancillary revenue. I say there's no such thing as ancillary revenue. Revenue is revenue. When you ask a hotel owner to build an outlet, he expects a return, right? Well, for a long time, we haven't been able to get those products on the shelf in front of the customer or our staff, for that matter, in some sort of cohesive way. So I think that in itself is a wow, right? The ability to actually consume all the products and services that a business may have to offer. From the staff side, the wow, to use the term, is that type of technical capability in the background that gives the staff the opportunity to produce the higher level customer experience because of the technology. Because at the end of the day, luxury is about choice from a customer's perspective. If what is, as Rohan said, what is luxury to Rohan and what is luxury to me are two different things. A lot of that can be demographic based. But what we do know in this sector is that we have to have both, and it's not for us to determine how the customer engages with us. It's for the customer to determine what suits them in the circumstances that they want to engage. And that flows through operationally to the way that the staff engage with the customer as well.
I think it comes down to is delivery of your guests. Your guests, they know what they want. And if you know your guest, you produce, you have your hotel be more, say, familiarized with them, with your digital environment, automation in the room, automating the technology in the room. I mean, you think of it as just light switches. Light switches are not just light switches anymore. Light switches today are completely digital. And, you have your HVAC systems, you have your IoT technology in the room, the lighting, so forth. And having that automation is in some of our guests and some of my guests that we have, that's their home. They have that technology at home. So they're just used to it coming into a hotel that has the same technology, only it's just a hotel room.
Gentlemen, the three of you are up here for a reason, obviously. You are widely regarded in our industry as exceptional leaders in our space. And the next question leads right into that. As the role of technology leaders, how can technology leaders secure a seat at the table during development and renovation planning to avoid costly mistakes such as outdated cabling and technology infrastructure, which can derail projects and compromise guest experiences despite significant capital investments? And I know Rohan's smiling because I know he may or may not share a story here, but I'm going to hand it over to him first.
I guess I'll share the story, and it was not at a Hyatt, so just a disclaimer. So there was a hotel which went through $50-60 million renovation, major renovation after 20 years, and beautiful 65-inch TV screen, amazing linen in the room, nice interior design. I mean, best-in-class luxury guest room. But guess what they forgot? They forgot to bring the technology guys into the process. And the cabling behind that TV was still coax cabling from 30 years ago. They forgot that the Wi-Fi access points are still in the corridor.
3 telephones.
One for every 6 rooms. And the guests actually are doing Zoom calls with 60 people inside the guest room. So fast forward, when they were about to bid the contract, luckily, I think I'm giving it away. That was, quickly they realized that they missed technology, which is the biggest component that drives everything. So I think, and all of a sudden had to stop the whole project, rethink the whole thing from start, and things of that nature. So to question, how can we avoid these pitfalls, right? The way we do that is, and I kind of blame ourselves in technology that we're so kind of, ingrained in our day-to-day tech stuff, which excites us, that we kind of need to improve our communication skills. I think reaching across the aisle, talking to your asset manager, just saying that hello, hey, how's it going? What kind of renovation pipelines do we have coming up? Talking to your design services folks, talking to your interior designers, you never know what you find out, right? And I mean, it's funny that IT thinks that you should never, what does the interior designer has to do with the IT guy, right? There's not elements there. So
They don't like us. They don't like us because they don't want the wireless access point visible or any cables or anything, right?
Absolutely. So I think communication is key, and IT leaders should actually take that initiative, pick up the phone, make that call every month, every quarter, talk to the asset design teams, and just keep in line of sight of what's going on, and ask some critical questions that, hey, this is where the dollars are getting spent. Have you thought about IT? And then automatically that gives them, because sometimes it's unintentional that, we are left out, so.
IT to hoteliers 15 years ago, we were the geeks. Like, we were nothing. We had no involvement with construction. We had no involvement with development. There was never a conversation asking for our opinion if they do need to replace the cabling. And today, in today's world today, you have to be at the front force of the project. If the project gets started, you got to be up front. You got to have that, guidelines. You got to give them the guidelines in advance, the expectation for your brand, for your hotel, what the ultimate cost is going to be is what's going to be delivered, right? So you have to be up front. You got to be honest, and they're not going to like it, but they're going to listen because at the end of the day, they want that revenue to grow. And the only way that they're going to grow is by providing the right technologies that are being requested by IT. Because IT itself is the living and breathing of a hotel today, where it was never that way before.
Yeah, just to take that a step further, so I don't come from technology originally. I'm an operational hotelier, tertiary qualified, worked in luxury in my operational career. So subsequently, I don't tend to look at things from the technology point of view. And if I've had any reason for any success, if I've had any success, in my career, it's because of that. In fairness to our peer group, our peers are not particularly interested in technology, and why should they be? It's not their responsibility, it's our responsibility. So, I spent a lot of time in my CIO roles in previous career focused exactly on this matter, this topic, this issue, because if you cannot get in front of the project at the earliest stage, I'm talking about development and going through due diligence stage, and make sure that the ownership has a deep understanding of what the brand promises and the tool sets that are going to have to come with that, then you will end up with failure at some level, right? It may not be comprehensive failure, but you'll end up with it. So, I think for me, a lot of people look at our jobs and think that's cool. That must be fun, and it is fun, right? But it's, having been at it for 36 years now, it's
become
tough.
a lobbyist. I mean, you can become a politician in a sense with your ownerships of these hotels and getting them to deliver.
So it's
Unfortunately.
just constant reinforcement and constant education to the peer group, owners and colleagues about the importance, the role and the timelines around technology, which only start and never finish, right? And that's the key. You know, it's an asset management job at the end of the day, and making sure that we leverage strategic assets for the future of the business, and it never stops. You know, so that education process never stops either.
I guess telling the story, right? You know, so the IT subject can be so dry, and you know, it might not be very interesting for owners and operators. So I think the way we tell the story of so what, if you don't do this, this is how we can be impacted, our guest experience, and the ROI conversations. I think that's a skill that IT needs to build within every org. So.
Yeah, 100% with the ROI comment, Rohan, 100%. I mean, you got to, I think with the three of us, we could easily say how a 100-room, 1,000-room, how much the IT is going to cost, roughly. We can come up with a number and say to the owner, hey, it's going to cost you $2.5 million to open this hotel just in technology. And the owner's going to look at you and be like, there's going to be a couple words coming out of the person's mouth, because they're like, are you serious? You know, like, what do you mean? Why can't we, why can't we reduce these things? You know, like, take some of this technology, change it. I've heard that I can get something cheaper over at this guy, and then you end up buying something that's not legitimate. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things of that. But I think the three of us could say that we already know, and we're able to present to the owners and the asset ownership that this is what's going to cost you. And then in the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to need to change some of that technology, and it's probably going to be about $3 or $4 million at that point. You know how technology changes. So
as you say, I think the unfortunate truth of our industry now is that technology and the business of hospitality have run into each other, and in a lot of our industry, there's a lot of discomfort with that, because industry's never really been all that focused on knowing about technology. And all of a sudden, what that means is there's discomfort, right? But industry at large has to push that discomfort aside, because it is a digital world and it's not going away. And you know, Rohan and I were just talking earlier, and you know, when I look at the landscape of technology from brand to operation, whether it be with Appellation or with other clients, I'm looking at 200 plus business functions that I'm providing automation capability for. Now, most people don't get past maybe 5, or give me a sales and catering system, a point of sale, a PMS. That was when I started in the industry. We were beyond that in the mid-'80s. Today, it's exploding, and every day, you know, keeping up. You know, you can imagine we spend full time doing this, trying to keep up. Your operational peers spend an hour a week, right? And we know, as much as we know, you know, to Rodney's point, there's a whole lot that we don't know. And that's what keeps us up at night, because there's this whole range of emerging capability, integration, functionality, automation delivery for an industry, and we've got people thinking about a PMS.
Awesome answers, guys. Smart group up here. I hope you're taking this all in, folks. Really good. Crystal ball time, gentlemen. 2025 and beyond. Where do you see the luxury hospitality space evolving over the next 5 years? Anybody happy to?
I'll have a crack. Look, I think going back to, you know, what we were just talking about then, the merging of technology and the delivery of hospitality at all levels, but particularly at this level, right? It's a high-touch part of, or at least it should be, a high-touch part of our sector. Because it's high-touch, going back to Rodney's point before, there's a deep opportunity for us to establish a real sinew between the customer and the product, right? And you don't get that in the mid-tier of, I need a bed tonight, whatever, could be any brand, could be independent, doesn't matter. At this level, the customer's much more engaged. And what that's going to mean is that technology is going to underpin so much more what we deliver at this level, because we have more products and services to offer, and we'll move more into a position where the customer can truly tailor their stay almost from an itinerary perspective across the types of products that we have to offer, particularly at this level of the industry. So, like it or not, technology's coming and there'll be more of it. And the wise will embrace it early, because at the end of the day, technology is competitive advantage. And I say that often, and a lot of people disagree with me, but I'll give you an example. You can have the best location, and let's face it, we're in a real estate industry, that matters in hospitality. If you can't have the best location, you probably can have the most powerful engine running your business. That is accessible. You can buy that, and you can step a very long way ahead of your competition if you're willing to make those investments.
Crystal ball for luxury hospitality. So, I think genuinely the guest of the future and today is very intentional. I think they do their research, and they don't just want to stay at a hotel anymore. They're looking at the holistic picture, where they're spending their dollars. Is it aligned with their culture? And, not only from sustainability, things like, is the brand sustainable? And I think Brittany talked about a CSR initiative like human trafficking. What is the brand? What does the brand stand for? And what are they doing beyond just a hotel room? Of course, using AI ML to hyper-personalize every bit of your stay is a given. That's going to be a basic benchmark. But beyond that, into the future, if you really genuinely want to grab that market share of the guests, you got to work hard as a brand to really go into these ancillary areas and make some meaningful changes. Design a hotel that's future-proof and good for the environment, protect your guests, protect children, and all of that. So I think that's my crystal ball for the future.
Yeah, I think smart room technology. I mean, as the time goes, the rooms are going to get smarter. The technology is going to get smarter. AI is going to start, driving a lot of this growth pattern. Everybody in this room has a cell phone. They have an iPad. They have a computer. Imagine the amount of data that you guys are just sitting in this room, just flying around in this room. It's going to triple, in due time, and you've got to be ahead of the game, and you got to look at preparing Wi-Fi 7. Wi-Fi 5 is, 6 is here. Wi-Fi 7 is coming out. Just as an example, there is, you go and you spend, say at a hotel, you spend $300,000 to put in a network, and in 6 months, you've got a new technology, and you've got a plan. 3 years from now, you're going to be changing that again, and it's going to be $500,000. So I think the growth pattern of where hospitality is going to be is you're going to see a lot more digitalization in the room, as well as the customer's experience.
I think just one other. Sorry, just one other thing too is that, we talk a lot about the customer, and I think particularly at this level of the industry, we're really, of course we should be customer oriented, but we get a little bit fixated on it. And we forget about the people who deliver the product, particularly at this level. Think about your own organisations. How much time are you putting into the back of the house and bringing the back of the house up to world-class scale in terms of what you can do for the people who actually work in the business? This is the part that gets overlooked in our industry all the time at great cost, because you can drive as much as you want in at the top level on the revenue line with the customer-facing side of it. But if you can't underpin that with an efficient operation using the modern tools that are available today, you just don't get the flow through. So, we need to not lose sight of the fact that a cohesive working environment is what's going to keep your staff around. It's what's going to allow you to attract staff, and we all know, the challenge that presents today.
Thank you, Mark. That's an extremely valid point and certainly well taken. And so moving on, bridging guest expectations and reality. Are current technologies like smart rooms and IoT truly addressing guest pain points, or are we focused on the wrong data?
Right. I think so. I think we've come a long way in smart room technology, where the locks talk to thermostats talk to lighting, And I'm guilty myself. I walk out of the room sometimes and don't realize I left some lights on, and I'm sure we all are guilty. And it happens. It's unintentional. But then we have motion sensors in the room that kind of come back and take care of that mishap, if you will, right? So drive back the operational efficiency, save environmental footprint and things like that. So I think technology and smart room and IoT. This is what we call IoT. IoT to me is like when all the bits and pieces of technology talk to each other and make an intelligent decision for someone like me that just walked out of the room. So I think so. I think it's absolutely.
I couldn't agree better. I mean, it's 100%, Rohan. That is where we're sitting today. Is you take the smart room, you walk out of the room, you want to save that revenue. That revenue that you would be losing because the lights were left on. Your electric bills are going to go down. So you're looking at AI is starting to do sustainability in the rooms that are smart. So you have a smart room, you're actually shaving that RevPAR because you're taking part of that revenue and putting it back for where you had left it.
It's a really tough space at the moment because we're in the bridge of generational technology. Someone who's 60 to 70 years old and didn't necessarily have or want to have some of the things that we can do today finds it challenging. You've all heard it. Even the TV controls, right? They struggle with that. So, I think it's going to be another generation or so before we can fully embrace what that truly becomes, because people have to grow with it, right? It's like everything else with technology. Does that mean we shouldn't push the envelope? No, I don't think it means that, but I would go back to both points, and I think one of the things I got into a long time ago, back when I was in Asia, was, I don't use the word sustainability, I use the word good business. Would you not want to optimize your use of energy, considering that after wage cost, utilities are the next highest cost in the hospitality sector? I'm not sure what that has to do with sustainability from the perspective of, first and foremost, I should run a more efficient business. I should get the flow through to the bottom line. And then on top of that, there are obviously benefits for the broader community when we take those steps. But first and foremost, it's good business. So if that means that the bridge, as we sort of go through this next generational cycle, is more sort of intelligence and control on the back end, right, whilst not necessarily forcing the customer to behave in a way that they're not comfortable with and create discomfort, then maybe that's sort of our growth stage as we go through the next 10, 15 years, Yes, we're technology people, of course, we're comfortable with that, but my parents who are, early 80s, they would not be comfortable with that. They got plenty of money, they'll stay in luxury, but they might not know how to turn off the lights, when it's time to go to bed at night. So we have to balance that demographic very carefully, because ultimately, from a customer's perspective, we're supposed to provide them with choice, right? Not dictate how they should do these things.
Thank you. Great answers, guys. Thank you. So here's something that's interesting, and it's an interesting question, because a few years ago, when one spoke about all-inclusive, you certainly didn't think of all-inclusive and luxury in the same breath. I think that's changed now. And my question to the panel, how does the all-inclusive model integrate with luxury hospitality from a tech perspective?
I can take this one since we acquired a large all-inclusive segment, the AMR Resorts in Cancun, Caribbean area. So, it's one of the most lucrative business that we bought in a long time. And the room rate, the ADR, is just unbelievably awesome. But on the hindsight, the guest is paying for that whole experience up front. So when you go to an all-inclusive resort, you're already paying for F&B, you're paying for your room, and then that becomes a challenge on how do you get ancillary revenue, right? And that's where we leverage technology and we've got Steve there from Real Time Reservation just calling you out. There are products out there that can help you drive spa bookings, cabana bookings, and really personalize that to the guest profile and say, well, this guest has stayed with us before, they did use the spa, they're staying here again, but haven't booked the spa. So how could we engage with them prior to their arrival and ask them, hey, there is a promotion going on, can we engage you? So I think it's going to be critical to look at those ancillary revenue opportunities within all-inclusive. While it's super lucrative business, there's definitely much more opportunities around creating experiences. Like if you're in Mexico or Mexico, you want to go and look at the cenotes, or you want to go see the pyramids, or you want to do some excursions and things like that, or a boat ride in the ocean. So those things are beyond the beaten path, if you will, in luxury, that we leverage software and solutions that are available. So
I can't really speak on that because we do not have all-inclusives. Obviously, with Nobu restaurants, if you've been to them, there's unique menus that are, by choice of what you're having. So can't really put together a all-inclusive package within a Nobu.
I think it's a really interesting sector of the industry. Obviously, what we know is that people who choose to stay in that type of product are generally well heeled, and they're not so concerned about the financial contribution. But I would argue that part of the opportunity and challenge there is the true understanding of the cost of delivering that business. So it's one thing to sell it on the front end, but going back to the topic that I raised before, if you don't have a laser-focused understanding of the back end of a business like that, and what consumption really costs you, and what it is that the customers are consuming, and what the cost flow-throughs of those are, you're all-inclusive. I think you touched on it there, Rohan, with the rate looks great, right? And that's not to suggest it's not profitable, because I'm sure it is. But I think the balance is making sure that what all-inclusive looks like can be underpinned by what the true costs of the business are, even down to an individual level, which would be the future, because that's what's going to truly dictate the entry price point, if you like. And I would question how well that's understood in some of those business models today, when they may not necessarily have the tools to measure it as effectively as they can.
Thank you.
Hoteliers, they know down to the bottom line of how much it costs for a room to operate when it's not being occupied. So they already know that it's going to cost them this amount of money. If they go ahead and they throw in breakfast, lunch, dinner, all-inclusive, so forth, they're putting a price tag on the average guest. They're going to say, the guest is only going to spend $200 worth of food and beverage and liquor, where they're taking a chance. They're really gambling. They're gambling on the fact that they're gonna make money off of that versus them losing money. And in the long run, in all inclusives in Mexico, it is 100%. It's more valuable to do that all inclusively, where you're gonna make more money because the cost of the goods is a lot less. But in places like in the U.S., it's gonna be a lot more thin-lined, and they're going to be very focused, laser focused on if they're going to be making money or they're not going to be making money. Because obviously that's what we're in business for, is we're not only delivering a luxury hotel, but we're also in there to make the money to show what our product is.
Yeah, a personal anecdote. So post high tech, some of my friends from home that would come over, we would do pre-high tech or post-high tech, and you can imagine what that might have looked like. And we would sometimes go down to Mexico, and I don't think they made a whole lot of money out of us. So, but I think to illustrate, Rodney, that's
not all cases.
That's right? The challenge, right? Is you've got to know the customer well, even down to the individual. And, swings and roundabouts. I'm sure it all works out. But I think my point is, I don't think we necessarily put the level of technology into fully understanding the back of the house of our business down to a very finite level of what is the margin, what is the delta of Mark being here in this property so that I can price properly. And I think that's why we find that it's a small sector of the industry, right, that sort of pushes the price point up to overcome that, perhaps lack of full visibility on the flow through, so that they cover their bases. But if you look at a lot of the, let's throw a few names out there: Mandarin Oriental, Peninsula, Aman Resorts, Rosewood. They're not doing a lot of all-inclusive, right? So I think there's something to that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Right. Lightning round, 2 questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. What is the most transformative change you expect in how we understand and anticipate guest needs going forward? That's a tough one.
Well, I'll speak. I'll speak a little bit about what some of the things I'm working on technically around this question. So, we all hear about AI, and I don't want this to turn into an AI discussion because that's a platform. It's not, it's not something that anyone needs to get particularly excited about. In my view, it will come, but the benefit of those things in the background is that, most of you would have some level of understanding of the principles of revenue management and why we have a technology to do that, right? We have the technology because it can process information faster than we can. That's the key. That's the underpinning of that. So we started with that in our industry, underpinning pricing, and we're using that, since the 30 years I've been involved with it, gradually increasing across the industry, and we're starting to understand that it is important. Take that same logic to the customer level, right? And it's not so much about price anymore, it's about what they're doing. It's about what they're booking, what they're looking at, what they're purchasing, what they did purchase, down to the line item of the particular bottle of red wine or the particular dish. So we've tried as an industry, all our industrial life, to notice that about our customers. We've done it in very traditional ways of writing notes on cards or keeping notes in some type of a customer database. Now the behaviour of the customer through technology can be analysed for the future and the past and help us isolate in our products and services to match their individual wants and needs. And this is not pie in the sky stuff I'm talking about. This is available today. You can consume it. You can put it into your business. And we're going to see more and more of that, as we go forwards. So that, for example, in Rodney's company's circumstance, where it's, food and beverage is very central, much like Appellation, to their brand, there's no reason why in the future Mark's menu, presented perhaps on some more practical digital paper, right? Not tablets, but getting to sort of thin layer digital paper, could not be a menu specific to me based on the things I had last time I came in, plus other dishes that resembled my taste set, and even a limitation of a very extensive wine list, which Nobu would have, which Appellation would have, down to my styles and varietals that I particularly like. That's not unrealistic at all. And that's just purely because of the ability to look at data and use it and get down to the individual level when we present it back to the customer. Whether that be we show it to the staff and tell them what to do, or we put it in front of the customer and let them make that decision.
I think with luxury, you start to learn. You know your guests. You see the people that come to your hotel. You learn them, and you start to understand them more and more. And it just is. It makes them feel at home. That you could go to a property that they're going to know who you are. Rohan's coming to the hotel, but Rohan, he's got a particular thing. He's allergic to feathers, so he gets the room completely changed with foam. And all that technology that we have within CRM or even our historical information in PMS, we're able to know that before he shows up, and his room is already ready to go. So as a luxury side, I think if you take into consideration, if you guys shop at Sam's or Costco or anything like that, and you use their mobile app to check out, it literally will ask you, hey, did you forget these items? Because it knows you bought those items. We're going to be in that state of mind soon. That's where our hotels are going to be. In our mobile apps, our apps are going to be so intelligent one day, at one point, don't know how intelligent, because we're still learning what we can do with those mobile apps. But those mobile apps, maybe as he's saying, will give that information directly, and it'll send a message to the hotel experience manager, and that experience manager is already on top of it, making sure that they have the Taylor Swift concert tickets for their kids when they show up, something crazy in that mess. But as we go, the platform is digital experience is gonna definitely make that change into reality.
Couldn't agree more. And I think personally we are in the most exciting times of our hotel industry, and the best is yet to come. And the reason why I say that is because, how many of us have had this experience where you go to a guest room, you're a loyal customer, top tier customer, and you still get a bottle of wine when you don't drink alcohol, right? It happens so often. It happens very often. And what does this tell us? Like, I think the guests tell us a lot. Like, they tell us, this is my preference. I like to eat this diet. This is what I drink and I don't. And I like to go to the gym at this hour. But all that data in the past has been sitting in some spreadsheet, in some CRM. There are so many softwares available.
Somebody's black book.
Somewhere, right? And the worst thing you can do to that guest is when they come back again and you make that same mistake, right? And that's when you piss the guest off, right? So I think you
lose the guest.
Lose the
at that
guest.
point. If they're spending thousands of dollars to stay in your luxury hotel and you can't get it right, you're definitely not doing it right.
Exactly. And I think that, yes, it's a buzzword, but AI or machine learning kind of takes that whole issue out of the equation through automation. And that's really what AI is all about, is to expedite and make less mistakes and automate the flow and save on the labor and eliminate the mistakes in the process. So I feel that we have something amazing coming up, and the companies that are going to invest in machine learning processes and invest the right tools and the right processes and improve their standard operating procedures going into the future to recognize that guests, they're going to be changing the equation. I definitely think so.
Yeah, just to, one of the things that we're focused on at Appellation is the total customer value. And it's largely driven by this type of capability, because I can know exactly what Rodney does, and I can know exactly what Rohan does, and I can see the differences in their behaviour, their spends, their patterns, right? So, thinking about the future, what does personal price points look like based on your behaviour? These will become more and more realistic as we move forwards.
Lifetime spends. You start learning about the lifetime spends of those individuals, and it's all done with the technology that you have today. If you book a open table, if you book in 7-room or something like that's all integrated. It's all adapted with the point of sale system, so they know that you're buying $1,000 dinner, and that's you're getting the same items, or you're getting the same liquors, same wines, so forth. So I mean, the type of technology that's out there today, there's a lot of it that is starting to really adapt to AI. And maybe it's not AI. It's more of and I use this in high tech. I brought this up for years in hotels we integrated something, a technology, into something else, and it was an integration. It was an interface. That's what it was. Now it's not that. Today it's intelligent interfacing. It's becoming artificial intelligence, where we're giving it a platform and saying, do this, do that, and it's starting to deliver.
I think if you think about your own portfolios, many of you are well and truly beyond the room in this space. You can't really do luxury with just a room, right? You've got to have more. And going back to some of the earlier topics that we put on the table, we have all these other revenue centers that we're expected to be profitable and successful in. And what that means when we use the big L word, loyalty, right? Where so many of the loyalty programs today are based on rooms consumption. One of my colleagues often says, well, Mark, you tell me if the person who comes and stays in the suite 3 times a year is as valuable to our business as we look to the future as a person who just had a wedding at our property and he's got 2 more daughters. All right, so how we look at customers and the products they're interested in versus what we keep thinking that our customers want or are interested in. Again, that's choice, right? How do we measure value? How do you become more valuable in the business from a lifetime perspective? Another thing I'll just put out there, going back to a term Rodney used before, experience or experience management, right? So my personal view is revenue management moves into the next phase and it becomes experience management. And experience management is about, for those of you who've been around the industry for a long time, if I throw something out there like capture rate, you'll know what I'm talking about. So in resort business, capture rate is everything, except that we generally fail at it because we've never been able to get in front of the customer early enough to help them understand what else we have to offer, right? That's changing, and what that means is that when we look at an experience becomes actual blocks of time that we as an operator can put in front of a customer based on understanding of their likes and dislikes and wants, and increase our capture rate through technology so that they're spending more of their time going back to the term we're all hearing about, which is experiential hospitality, right? That's what's going to drive that on the back end, and that'll be a combination of human capital and it'll be a combination of technology.
Sorry, I see there's a question. Do you have a question?
So we talk about a hospitality CRM, right? I mean, we've been talking about it for 10 or 15 years. I mean, it's not new, because in Vegas specifically, right, or in the casino industry, I should say, we don't want to share our customer data. And to get that full picture, what we need the set rooms and open table and any of the hospitality application vendors to think about is how do we seamlessly not integrate but make both of them intelligent? Because open table, I'm just going to call it up specifically, they're they want to keep the data, right? They're like, oh no, it's in our system and it's just in our system. They've got to think about to get that full customer view and to continue using that market. Like they've got great, like we want to use open table, right? Because they've got that audience pull, right? It's that whole reputational thing. But it's not the best way for us to build our CRM. That do the internal development. We don't want to. We want the experts to know what they're doing, so we don't have to worry about that stuff.
Yeah, that's so. If you know any of my background, I used to run technology for the international side of MGM Resorts previously. My first answer to you was forget about hospitality CRMs. There isn't one, right? Which gets you above some of those immediate problems. Open table, like Expedia, is your frenemy. Okay, the bigger issue with Open Table is that Open Table is not and will never be your platform. So I would argue that if you're, would you open a hotel today and only put your inventory on Expedia? Not to any owner's satisfaction, right? Well, why do we open a restaurant and put all of our restaurant inventory on Open Table? Same thing, right? But our industry has to learn this again. It's funny. I find it quite humorous because we went through this with the rooms market. We're going to do it again 20 years later. But for you, so yes, at MGM Resorts, we had our internal development team. We used Teradata, different solutions like that, which was all right for the time, right? Because that's what you had to do. But we're beyond that now. There are global CRM platforms that you can put above industry. The other issue that you've got on the gaming sector side is that there's this willful ignorance of not wanting to share the gaming data. And I would argue as a hospitality person who came into gaming, I honestly think the gaming companies missed the boat. They don't understand that all the things we're talking about here is total customer experience, total customer value. And I was at the CIO roundtable a couple of weeks ago, and the only thing anyone was talking about AI for slot gaming membership. I mean, seriously? It's 2024. So part of it is a cringe, I think, in the gaming sector that they've got to get beyond and see, what's really going on out there in the rest of the world where, in fairness, when you've got that much revenue coming through a revenue stream, it's easy to ignore the other stuff. But at the same time, all these companies are focused on all the other things that the rest of the industry has in common with them. We're just better at it outside of the gaming sector. So there's path there. It's pretty straightforward, but it's going to take some real rethinking at the senior level.
Along those lines, Rohan, you mentioned that it's quite an exciting time. It's actually, I would say, a little bit of a scary time. I turn to my chef for a great product. I turn to my IT guy, and sometimes you guys are blamed for, this isn't working. Why is it not working? I don't know how many emails you get about the brand new app that does that, or the brand new cloud-based thing that does that. How do you weed through all those different offerings and you can get a product? I know this is a very loaded question, but how can you get a product that then you can give to your team back in the house so that they can get back to hospitality? It's kind of scary today.
It is. It's a great question. So I think that, also going back to the previous question, no matter how much we aspire to be tech forward and tech companies, we are ultimately hospitality companies. And most times some hotel brands lose that perspective. Our job is to put the head in the bed, and that's what we do. We are a hotel company at the end of the day, and that's where we excel at. And there's always going to be reliance on the third-party solution providers, and it's a happy marriage because they specialize in that area. Now, I think, through your digital channels, and specific to certain brand, because certain products don't fit to certain brands either, right? So I think, depending on what your use case is, what brand, is it a select brand, is it a full service brand, is it an all-inclusive brand, you have to spend time doing a lot of research and peer reviews to see what's working, what product has been successful, what kind of integrations they have that I can leverage into my ecosystem, into my website, into my loyalty application. And that's really where the fine line is. I think integration is key, identifying the right players, their commercial models, their support agreements. That's where I think brands should be investing a lot of time in researching, because most times, most general managers unfortunately make a decision to buy a product because their other hotel across the street is using it, or the brand say it's so, or somebody told them to do that, right? So I don't think we spend enough time doing a proper due diligence in that area.
One of the things that is a bit of a problem for our industry is, Rohan just touched on it there, is that with the exception of HR, finance and technology, all other functional departments are vertical in orientation and they care about what they do, right? There's nothing wrong with that because that's their responsibility, but it doesn't work from a technology point of view. So, I deal with this with my clients. I deal with inquiries that come to me. It's like, well, I need a new this, and it's, well, do you? That we have to step back, and this is what we do every day, and take this view of what we're doing with the business. You cannot look at a single piece of it because the further we go, it's always been this way, right? It's not new. It's just that it's becoming more important. The interconnected nature of technology today means that you have to evaluate what you're trying to be as a business, not what technology you need. You've got to start from the business perspective, look at it from the business perspective, and let your technologists find the combination of tools that gives you the business outcome that you want. And until we grow up and do that, we're always going to be dealing with, well, I got one of these and Mary said I should get this and John wanted that over there. It doesn't work. It's a strategic long-term asset of the business that if you walk into it thinking, well, if we don't like it, we'll get rid of it, you're fooling yourself. That's not how it works. Getting out of technology is more difficult than getting into it because you've built a process, an operational design, but more importantly, data around that. You're locked in. All right? That's why you don't see a lot of volatility with technology overall. So you've got to get it right, and you've got to put the time in advance to have, you know, my vision for software, right? If I've made the right decision, it's for life. It's not changing. The only time I would recommend to a client to change their software is when their vendor cannot keep moving in the direction that either A, industry is going or they need to go. Then there's a divergence in the path. But short of that, you work in partnership, you grow together, you leverage the capability that they've got, and that's the key.
Gentlemen, thank you. We've run out of time, unfortunately. We would have loved to have continued more. Sharon gave us a very limited time. This could have gone for at least another hour. Thank you for the questions. The panelists will be here after we wrap up here if there are any other questions. But gentlemen, thank you. It was terrific. Thank you so much.
Thank you.